In Iraq, Islamic State is apparently trying to make a comeback, with the number of terror attacks doubled in the past month in the country. That's according to a security advisor of the Iraqi government that we spoke to. Iraq declared a final victory over ISIL last December.
In June, the ISIL militants stepped up their activity. According to government data, there were 83 cases where they abducted and killed civilians. That's twice the number in May, when ISIL had been devastated by the government military crackdown.
We asked the Iraqi Ministry of Internal Affairs to comment on this, and we'll bring you their response as soon as we get it. The US started its campaign in 2014 and is continuing to strike terrorist targets in Iraq. Murad Gazdiev reports on the fight to eradicate the jihadists.
It took very nearly the entire world united to defeat ISIS caliphate in Syria and Iraq. They did it. They destroyed the caliphate, albeit at a huge cost, and proclaimed victory. Some did more proclaiming than others.
The coalition to defeat ISIS has liberated very close to 100% of the territory.
We've done a great job with ISIS. We have just absolutely decimated ISIS.
Just absolutely obliterated ISIS in Iraq.
A case of celebrating a little early. ISIS was never beaten. They lost the battles, but the war's far from over. They've gone back to basics: hit-and-run raids, assassinations, insurgency, terror.
There is still some fear. It's possible for groups of militants to go into houses and slaughter entire families. If you were there, you would probably not want to stay. If I were to go back, who would protect me and my family? They would just come over and slaughter us. I'm forced to stay in the camp to protect their lives.
In Iraq, ISIS has gone underground. This area of Iraq has colloquially become known as the Triangle of Death because of this new insurgency. They operate in small groups, half a dozen jihadists at most, making it incredibly difficult to track them down.
There are still a few ISIL sleeper cells hidden in places such as the desert, the forests, on the islands of the Tigris River, and among civilians.
Few sleeper cells doesn't do it justice. Kidnappings, killings have soared as much as tenfold in just a few months, an Iraqi government advisor told us. They target officials, plant bombs, set up fake roadblocks, and murder at will, then vanish, sometimes with prisoners. The families, children of these soldiers that were kidnapped by ISIS begged the government for help, to find whoever kidnapped them, to secure their release, anything. They got nothing.
Those are the men who protected the Prime Minister, the Minister of Health, and many other officials. This is their reward for their service, being dumped here on the floor.
Some of the hostages were found dead, their bodies mutilated, likely tortured before death, their corpses rigged with explosives. And the government's afraid of people finding out how bad it's becoming.
Iraqi state media is staying silent about the kidnappings so as not to spread panic and hinder the government's rescue efforts. The number of ISIL kidnappings has surged since May, and now the special forces do not have enough resources to hunt the militants down, as they are hiding out in remote mountainous areas. ISIL have managed to find sources of funding in their so-called Triangle of Death. They terrorize the locals. Hundreds of villages in that area have been depopulated. Now the terrorists use them as military bases, jails, and command units.
Iraq is at a crossroads. It learned to level cities to defeat ISIS's caliphate, but that doesn't work anymore. ISIS is an idea of zealotry, fanaticism. It's also an outlet for desperation, for violence, for bloodthirst. And ideas are the hardest of all to kill.